Okay, good morning everyone. Today we will be swatching out some watercolours, the new watercolours in these fancy new palettes that you have, and we will also be playing around with some watercolour techniques. So let's get started. First of all, wet your watercolour brush. Watercolour brushes have bristles that these are actually imitation sable or imitation squirrel. They're not the real deal, but they do come back to a point when they are wet. And I would suggest you probably do get the bristled ones that have the round ferrule. Okay, so wetting your brush. Going to start with titanium white. This won't be very easy to see. I did wet these up before, but I might wet them up again just to make sure that they are ready and primed, ready to actually be used. Just add a little water on them. I'm not agitating the water, just adding it to the tops. And that'll be enough to just get the watercolor process started. Making sure we're clean, we start with the white. So just gently rubbing the brush, I'm hoping you can see that, rubbing the brush back over the bristles, and I'm going to paint a leaf pattern. So you saw I start with the tip of the brush, press down to widen the bristles, release as I get to the top. This will be a bit clearer when I do the next colour. I might go down to vermilion, which is the orangey red colour, just so you can actually see what I'm doing. So I'm actually loading up the brush, twisting the bristles into the water, not on top of the actual paint itself. I don't want that much paint on there. And then again, gently down, pressing to widen up the bristles, around in a slight curve, release, so it comes to a point. Go back to the beginning, down, widen the bristles, and back to a point. And you end up with quite a nice little leaf. That white area, I think, just adds to the overall effect. Prussian blue, same thing. Loading up the paint. I'm just gently teasing the water across the paint to load up the bristles. These paintbrushes tend to hold quite a lot. So a little pressure and release. A little pressure, release. You end up with a nice leafy shape. Release back off, washing out. Burnt sienna. This is the lighter of the two browns. So I'm working down the page so you can see what I'm doing. Again, just lightly rubbing the bristles across the actual solid part of the paint. So sienna is the nice lighter of the two. Lemon yellow. Now this had a bit of red in it, but I'm hoping that if I get enough yellow, it'll disperse that and you won't even see that it's there. Lemon yellow. Okay. Crimson red, the darker of the two reds. Now, I mean, you don't have to do a leaf shape if you don't want to. You could do absolutely any shape you want. You could just paint in swashes. I might show you on the black one afterwards. Deep green is the darker of the two greens. Again, I don't want to lift up that solid. I actually just want the liquid. and burnt umber, the darker of the two browns. Yellow ochre. It's like a dirty yellowy brown. This one is more reminiscent of what you would actually get from the earth if you dug up a clay soil. You might get this yellowy colour. And we would obviously grind it up as a dry powder and add some gum arabic to it. The gum arabic acts as a binder. There are some other things you can add instead of gum arabic. These include xanthan gum and guar gum, but at the moment we don't have any at the school. But I'll try and purchase some. We can have a go at making our own paints. Violet, sap green, which is quite light. And of course the black. I'll do this as just a swatch just to show you that you could do this instead of doing leaf shapes. Okay, so I'm going to call that part 1. Now in part 2 I have drawn up a few boxes. You could use the templates to do this. So tracing on the inside of the templates, each one of these is going to be a different technique. I'm going to show you 4 or 5. I want you to play and do your own a little bit later. But before I go on, I'm going to pause the video and change out my water. Okay, welcome back to part 2. I have a nice clean brush. So I've labelled out a few of the ones I'm going to try. I'm going to show you 12 of them. There's probably about 32 different techniques, but I'm not going to show you all of those today. I'll wait till I get back to show you the rest. The first one I want to show you is just a simple wash. When we do a wash, we actually lay a colour down so it is even. And there are no light areas or no dark areas within it. So when we talk about a wash, we fill the entire space. And there are no dark areas. So we'll leave that to even itself out. And you will notice that it is fairly much the same colour throughout. Washing off the brush. Now I'm going to show you how to blend 2 colours. Now we need to keep both colours fairly wet to be able to do this. So I'm going to start with yellow at the top. And I lay down quite a nice wet layer. Wash the colour off of my brush, obviously. And then I'm going to lay down the dark green from the bottom upwards and blend the 2 together. So what I do is I take the yellow up and then bring it back down. There's quite a lot of colour on that brush. I'm just going to dry that off a little just by taking the additional water off of the side of the brush. And just bring those colours back together. So you can go up and down a few times if you want to. And that just gives you quite a nice even blend of the 2 colours. Okay, ups and downs. So you get a nice gradient effect. Okay, to put a wet paint down on a dry paint, down on dry paper. Eventually what's going to happen is you would run out of paint and it would slowly get thinner and thinner as you get towards the end. Okay, to do a wet on wet, you need to lay down a layer of water. You don't want it soggy, you just want it so it glistens. So what I've done is I've just taken my brush, wiped off any excess water on the side of the water pot, and the paper is just glistening. I'm going to pick up some blue and I'm going to just drop blue into the wet paper, onto the wet paper, and you can see it actually spreads. I'm going to show you what happens when I put down some purple in there too, because eventually the two will start to blend. Okay, you'll notice that when you do the wet on wet, the water that you lay down to begin with is actually where the colour goes. It doesn't travel outside of that area. I've actually muddled these up. This is the wet on wet touch, and this one here will be the wet in wet. So I'm going to paint an orange. Actually, I might start with yellow. My water's getting dirty already. I should have had 2 cups over here. So I'm going to lay down a yellow leaf, much like I did before, but I'd like to put a little orange into it. Some colours do this better than others, where the colour spreads through. And that one doesn't seem to want to play the game, so I'll try and add red into it. Yeah, the red is spreading a little more, but still not great. I'll come in with some yellow ochre. Okay, could be the paper that's causing it to not blend as much as I'd like to. Can't be helped. Okay, I'm going to go in and add some black. I'm going to add some salt to that. It gives it quite a nice effect. So this must be done while the paint is still wet. So I've just got some pink salt. I'm just sprinkling it in that area. I don't want it everywhere, just there. The next one, I'm going to use Prussian blue. So when the salt actually dries with the salt, it creates quite a crusty surface. But when we do the same thing with the Prussian blue and the rice, you'll notice although it absorbs the colour, it doesn't leave it crusty. So I'm just trying to get it fairly even. I'm going to add a few grains of rice on there. I'm going to leave these to dry. The next one, rubbing alcohol. Let's go back and do an orange. So each time I'm doing this, I'm making sure there's lots of water in the brush, so it's replenishing the water that's in the paint palette on the colours. Okay, so for the rubbing alcohol, I'm actually going to just dry my brush off a little bit, dip the handle, and then drop the rubbing alcohol. Now this should work with the hand sanitizer that we have near the front door. And you can see it actually forces the separation of the colours. And the more you put on, the bigger the effect, I believe. It might depend on the actual rubbing alcohol that you're using. And again, your paper should be very similar to what I'm using here. Okay, so colour lift is my next one. So we can lay our colours down. I'm using the crimson red. And I can actually lift colour back off by using a cleaned up brush. So if I want, I can actually start to pull some of the colour away. Now what I'm doing is I'm making sure my brush is clean and then just carefully taking the colour away. I'm not scrubbing it. I am literally just pulling colour away from that area. And I do it by twisting the brush as I'm coming. It's not going to get all of it away, but you can see it is taking quite a lot of colour away. I'll just get a paper towel, I'll show you the next one. So for the next one, I have kitchen roll. You can use the hand towels. Let's use orange, no. Let's use sap green. Okay, so lay down your colour again. And then once you have your colour down, you can actually put it into the shape that you want and lift your colour away. And you can see it's actually quite effective. Just don't get your fingers in the way. It's actually quite effective there. Okay, last couple, and then it's your turn. I'm going to use the burnt umber. I quite like the burnt umber. If I add a little of the Prussian blue to that, actually I might do that for you, just to show you. So on the palette, I'm mixing the burnt umber, and I'm going to mix some Prussian blue in with this, and this makes what we call Payne's Grey. It's quite a well-known colour and gives quite a different effect again. Okay, so I'm going to apply a little bit of cling film to this. Now the cling film will be in the science cupboard to the left-hand side. So to apply the cling film, I'm scrunching it into shapes that I want, and I'm going to have to leave it there until it's dry. Now to glaze a colour, if I start with yellow and lay down a base of yellow, I can actually put down another colour over the top. But of course I have to wait for it to dry, otherwise it's just going to blend like the ones we've already seen. So I'm going to assist this by using a small dryer. I will turn the sound off in the video, but for now I have to leave it on. So sorry about that noise. And for this one, I know that I can put another colour over the top, and I think I will put orange, and I'll do, let me see, I'll make that leaf shape again. It's nice and simple. And I can paint this straight over the top without disturbing the yellow that's underneath. So there you have 12 different techniques for watercolors. When you're looking at your Dean Russo work, you may want to incorporate 1 or 2 of these. Certainly consider which colors can go next to each other. So if we're looking at the green and red, these are complementary colors. Okay, you can also do something called a split complementary. So if you look at the red and come down to the split complementary, the split complementary is actually either side of the green. So you've got the blue green and the yellow green. You'll see this on your color wheel. You made these before. So the red, the blue green and the yellow green are all split complementary colors. You could go analogous colors like Dean Russo does in a lot of his work. And this is where you take 3 or 4 colors that are all next to each other on the color wheel. You would not add in a 5th or a 6th, no more than 4. I tend to do 3. So if you're looking to create something that stands out, you need the complementary color. If you're looking for something that blends into the next color, you are looking at analogous colors. Have fun playing with these guys. I will see you hopefully next week. Okay, some of you may be doing your color wheels still. You need to finish those first. Get your swatches done. Play around with the mixtures. You may need to have 1 palette between 3 or even 4. Be kind to each other. Share them as much as you can. Do not use the green handled brushes. They are bristle brushes. They are meant for tempera paint and you're not using tempera. Don't leave the brushes like I just did in the water. Okay, we know about the water traveling up the bristles, underneath the ferrule and into the wood and causing the wood to swell. So we lay our brush down, please. Good luck with your swatching and your playing around. I'll see you soon. Thanks, guys.